The parable of the sower is one of 7 such parables in the 13th chapter of Matthew. It is a familiar one to many of us, especially those of us who like gardening. A sower casts seed on 4 kinds of ground. The packed ground of a footpath, ground full of rocks with minimal topsoil, ground that is thick with competing thorns, finally, fertile ground with rich and deep soil. Depending on where they land, the precious seeds are eaten by birds or spring up quickly and then wither away or get choked by thorns, while some of them, roughly 25% of them, take root in the soil. I remember a little over a year ago when our youth did a stage production of Godspell, the good-humored musical based on the plot line of the Gospel according to Matthew. 4 rambunctious youth dressed like clowns played the seeds, each of them meeting a different fate. The seed that was cast on the footpath no sooner hit the ground than other actors making crow noises flapped down and pecked him to death. The seed that was cast on rocky ground came to life quickly, waving her arms around and dancing in place, and then an actor carrying a big yellow cardboard sun stood over her until she grew limp and fell to the stage. The seed that was cast among thorns barely had time to get to his knees before he was surrounded by prickly-looking characters who got their hands around his neck and choked him. Finally, there was the seed that was cast upon the good soil, who came gracefully to life and stayed alive, bowing as both the audience and fellow actors gave a round of applause. Watching all of that at the time, I had the same response I always did to the parable back in Sunday school. I started worrying about what kind of ground I was on with my relationship with God. I started sweating about how many birds were in my field, how many rocks, how many thorns. I started worrying about how I could clean them all up, how I could turn myself into well-tilled, well-weeded, well-composted soil for the sowing of God's living Word. I started figuring how the odds were 3-to-1 against me. Yes, those are the odds in the parable. I began thinking about how I could beat the odds or at least improve them. I surmised that this might be your response to the parable as well. Hear it as a challenge to be different, as a call to improve your life, as an opportunity to root your faith in deeper soil, to ensure a happier ending in the garden of life. But there is something wrong and even heretical with that reading of the parable, because if that is what it is all about, then it should be called the parable of the different patches of ground. Instead, the parable has been known for centuries as the parable of the sower, which means that there is a good chance that we have gotten the interpretation backwards. We hear the story and think it is a story about us, or worse, a story on us. What if it is not about our initiative, but about the initiative of the sower? What if if it is not about our own successes and failures and birds and rocks and thorns and competing commitments and anxious moments of scarcity, but about the extravagance of a sower who does not seem to be fazed by such concerns. The sower flings seed everywhere, wastes it with holy abandon, feeds the birds, sings to the rocks, and picks through the thorns. The sower, the scatterer of life's seeds, the living word, shouts hallelujah at all the soil and keeps on sowing, confident that there is enough seeds to go around, that there is plenty. I remember when I used to sow our garden growing up in North Carolina. My father would sort of tutor me in that. And the soil wasn't always great in central North Carolina. It was that red clay stuff that you tracked into the house and your mom got on to you about it. It held the water very well. But I remember sowing the garden in the springtime, and I was going through a furrow, and I was squatting down and doing one seed at a time every 6 inches, and going down the row, and then I went to the next row, and finally my father just lost his patience. He said, just throw the seed. That's how our sower is. The sower flings seed everywhere. And when the harvest comes at last, it will fill every barn in the world to the rafters. And no one will go hungry, physically or spiritually. If this is truly the parable of the sower and not the parable about soil analysis, then it begins to sound quite new and rather hopeful. The focus is not on us and our shortfalls and our paralysis of soil analysis, but on the generosity of our God. The focus is on the God revealed in Jesus Christ and filled with the burgeoning life of the Spirit, who is never stingy with the seed, but casts it anywhere and everywhere, on good soil, depleted soil, and all soil in between. This sower is not cautious or judgmental or even practical, but seems willing to keep reaching into the seed bag for all eternity, covering the whole creation with the fertile seed of truth and grace. For those who have ears to hear, listen. Thanks be to God.